Hello everybody and welcome to this Great Lakes Food Trail Old Inroad wine tasting special, brought to you by COVID-19 because we can't see anybody, so here we are talking to you via live stream. Lovely to see you. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Dale and I'm joined today by my partner Susie. We're at lovely Yeo Farm today. We're numbers 1 and 2 on the Great Lakes Food Trail map when you get a chance to have a look at the map next time we can have an event. Of course, we are observing appropriate social distancing. Is the camera working okay? Excellent. So what we're going to do today is just take you through for about the next 10 minutes a very short wine tasting. And we're going to talk about our Table Verdelho and our Table Dolcetto red wine. We will introduce our other varieties, but we're just going to taste these two today. Old Inroad Wine has been with the food trail since its inception. We think it's a great idea and we've been so pleased to see it grow with new people coming on, and next time you come out to see us there'll be even more exciting things for you to see and taste and take home. So we'll start with our Table Verdelho. Our Table Verdelho is the 2019 that we'll be tasting today. This wine has won a gold and a silver medal this year. It's a lovely example of a light, crisp style of Verdelho. Where does Verdelho come from? Good question, glad you asked it. Verdelho originally comes from Portugal and it's been around for many hundreds of years, used largely to make things like Madeira. If you've heard of Madeira, it's a fortified wine. So it's quite an old variety, but it's very popular in Australia as a table wine because it makes a lovely light, crisp style of white. Excellent with seafood, fresh seafood, cheeses, those styles of things, or just sitting on the veranda at 5 o'clock and having a relax. So, where do we start? All right, so with any typical wine tasting, we should follow a sequence. And the first thing that we're going to talk about is clarity. Wines do have different clarity, and by clarity I mean the looking through the wine, holding it up to the light. Is it clear? Is it shiny? Does it look glossy? If it does, then that's a well-balanced, probably quite acidic wine. This particular vintage is beautiful and clear. This particular vintage is beautiful and clear, and the colour I would say is pale straw. Now that's the next thing you're looking for, clarity, then colour. So pale straw is about right for a Verdelho. Sometimes you'll see different varieties are different vintages are a little more golden from different producers. A lot of Hunter Verdelhos are quite golden. They're a different clone of the grape. We grow what's called a Kosovich clone because it produces this lovely light, crisp style of wine. So we've looked at clarity, we've looked at colour, and whilst I'm actually looking at the colour, I'm just twirling the wine around, and if you're not confident to do it that way, you can do it on the table. And that brings us to the nose of the wine, the bouquet. So this should have a lovely tropical nose, which it does. Twirling the wine in the glass like this activates the esters in the juice. They're quite volatile and they will come to the surface and you can smell them quite easily. Lovely different flavours of, I'm getting lychee, white peach and a little bit of citrus, but everybody is different. You may not get those, but everybody's palate is different, so don't feel left out if you don't get that. You'll get other things that other people don't. And that's the wonderful thing about grapes. It's a different experience for everybody. So, the other thing that you'll see when you twirl the wine is, I'm not sure if you can catch it, but you'll get these rivulets running down from the top. We call them legs, and that's actually the glycerin in the wine. And good legs is evidence of a well-balanced wine. If they're a little thin like that, it means the wine is quite dry. If they're a bit thicker and a bit more viscous, then the wine is quite sweet. And it also is an indication of alcohol level. So those thinner legs suggest that this is not a high alcohol wine, and it isn't. It's about 12%. So We've done aroma, clarity, colour. Now we get to the good bit, the tasting. So what should we expect to find with this style of Verdelho? It should be light and crisp, it should be clean, should taste refreshing, and it should, if it's well made, have a long finish. That means you can still taste the wine after you swallow it. So give the wine a chance to dance on your tongue, and when you swallow it, give it a chance to finish its routine before you take the next sip, okay? Now don't be afraid to make sucking noises and swirl it around your mouth, and make sure you're using your nose. Try a little experiment. Hold your nose, take a sip, see what it tastes like. Then take your fingers away and take a sip using your nose as well, and you'll find a much broader experience of taste sensations if you're using your nasal passages, because that activates the esters in your mouth. That's a lovely wine. No wonder it won a gold medal, I'm saying. Beautiful, absolutely delicious, and as I said, that would go really well with seafood or cheeses or any dishes like that. Verdelho is made in a stainless steel tank, as most whites are. Very few whites are actually fermented in an oak barrel. Some, like Chardonnay, are put into an oak barrel and they go through a secondary fermentation called malolactic fermentation, and that process converts the malolactic acids in the wine to lactic acid, which is a softer acid. So that process is designed to give Chardonnays that buttery character that you might be familiar with. Some Chardonnays taste a bit like butter popcorn. Well, they've gone through that malolactic fermentation process. But most whites don't benefit from oak treatment. You don't really want an oaky flavour in your glass of white, so they're just made in stainless steel tanks. Similarly, a lot of rosés are made the same way. They can be made in oak, but generally they're made in stainless steel tanks. So that's our Verdelho. We'll put that aside for another little taste later. And now we're going to try our red. Today we're using our Dolcetto, straight Dolcetto Cabernet, 20% Cabernet, 80% Dolcetto 2018 to do the tasting. Reds are a little more complex than whites. Unfortunately, we have none of this for sale at the moment. The vintage is completely sold out, but we'd like to use it for the tasting anyway. These are called Stelvin enclosures, if you're not familiar with them. They're almost universally used in Australia now. Cork is almost completely gone by the wayside. They're excellent. They won't fail. They're easy to reseal the bottle if you want to put it back on the shelf or in the fridge overnight, and they're reasonably inexpensive to produce. So, right, our 2018 Dolcetto Cabernet is made up of this Italian variety Dolcetto, which comes from the northwest of Italy, around Piedmont. It's a very, very dry table wine in its native environment, and we find that here, when we grow it here in Australia, we lose a little bit in the middle palate. So that's why we just add a little bit of Cabernet to round that out, and it works beautifully. Same routine when you're tasting a red as a white. Clarity, hold it up to the light, check the colour, particularly around the meniscus, which is this edge here. If you're seeing a lot of brown colour right at that edge in the last millimetre of the top of the wine may be oxidised, so just be a little bit careful. But you should see light going right through the wine. You can look down from the top, you get different types of shades of red. This is quite a light shade of red. We have another of our wines that I bought out of museum stocks to show you today. This is actually a rosé, which is no longer available now, it's sold through, but you can see it's almost the same colour as that Dolcetto red. I'll turn it round so you get a good look. That's almost a light red, but it is made as a rosé. So you can get quite a difference. If this was a Shiraz, when you look down through it or through the light, you should see a lovely dark, rich purple colour. Shiraz or Zinfandel will do that. It will give you that sort of colour. This sort of colour is a Pinot Noir or a Sangiovese, or in this case our Dolcetto, that quite lighter style of red. Becoming quite popular, this style. Lighter body, a little bit lower in alcohol, and a bit more versatile than the big heavy reds. So we've looked at clarity and it looks pretty good. We've looked at colour, and it's what I expect to see. There's no cloudiness in the wine, which means it's been properly clarified before bottling. Wines are also cold and hot or heat stabilised before they're bottled, which means that they go through a process. So if you get about and leave it on the windowsill accidentally, the wine won't go cloudy or be tainted. Or if it's left in the freezer and you forget about it, it actually won't, ice crystals won't form in the wine when you take it back out again. So that's part of the winemaker's job to cold and heat stabilise. So we've passed the colour, we've passed clarity, now we're at the nose stage, the bouquet. So I should get some red berries on the nose with this wine, subtle oak, because this wine was made in oak, French oak, but quite an old barrel. So not strong oak, but you don't really want strong oak with a light style of red like this. You want it to be reasonably lively, lovely savoury tannins. Tannins are those parts of the wine that have a slight bitterness about them. That's the cold black tea taste. You don't want too much of that, but you do need a little bit in red wine because that's what gives it age and gives it character. So once again, I'm going to give it a bit of a twirl. Let's see if we can see what the legs are here. So as we twist the glass around, we're getting more legs and a little bit wider than we saw with the Verdelho. So more closely spaced and a little bit wider than the Verdelho. So that tells me it's a little bit higher in alcohol, but it's still quite dry. So good glycerin content. Glycerin gives you mouthfeel. So when you take a sip of wine and you feel that velvetiness around your mouth, the glycerin's what's doing that. So you need that for the wine experience. Now the good part. Lovely. I should be getting ripe red fruits. That's what I'm getting. Red berries, black berries. More red berries than black, but delicious. Lovely finish, nice astringency. That would be served with Yo Farm lamb or some of the lighter cuts of Great Lakes Paddocks beef. Even pork would go fine with this. So very versatile wine. We had Better Homes and Gardens did a session up here at Yo Farm, and they cooked a leg of lamb in Andrew and Em's oven, above ground oven, and this was served with it, and it was fantastic. Thoroughly recommend it. So we've done the tasting of the red, we've done the tasting of the Verdelho. I should introduce a couple of our other wines. We have a beautiful late pick variety, which is made from Verdelho as well, just made differently, and the grapes are left on the vines a little longer. This is a beautiful wine with, say, a Bavarois from Nadine the Cake Queen. That goes delicious with that sort of dessert. This is our Frizzante, which is a little sweeter and a little bit upmarket, a bit like a upmarket Moscato. Lightly bubbled, lovely pineapple and honeysuckle character, a beautiful all-round wine. Our sparkling Espadillo, which is like a Prosecco style one, and I'm sure Susie's going to talk a little bit more about that. That's her favourite, and that's a lovely refreshing style of bubbly. And our great favourite at the moment is a sparkling rosé, made from Dolcetto and Cabernet. It's a beautiful salmon pink in colour, spicy, fruit-driven flavours, very aromatic, lovely and refreshing. Wine is a wonderful thing, but it's even better when paired with the right dishes, and you'll find them all on the food trail.
Hi, I'm Susie from Old Inn Road Wine. I'm going to continue on about some of the rest of our range of wines. I'm not sure whether Dale mentioned, we actually grow 3 varieties of wine. We grow the Verdelho, which is a Portuguese variety. We grow Dolcetto, which is an Italian variety, and we grow the Chambourcin, which is actually a French hybrid. Now, with those, we are quite small, but we do a lot of different sort of preparations to the wines to make it look like we're much larger than we are. With that, we do a number of different things with the Verdelho that I'll continue with. Apart from the still Verdelho that Dale's mentioned already, my personal favorite is the Espadella. Now, part of the reason with the Espadella is I got tired of drinking other people's Prosecco. So I had a lovely little chat with our winemaker, Nick Patterson, and he came up with this sort of option to do with the Verdelho. So what happens with that one is it's a neutral ferment with the juice to dryness. So it's as dry as possible. All the sugar molecules get converted over to alcohol. And then we take it across to Peterson Champagne House, and they do a bubbling for us. Now, we've had an ongoing relationship with Peterson's with our wine. So Nick tends to do our base wines, and he does another bubble for us, which is our Frizzante, which I think Dale also mentioned. With the Frizzante, we had people that were initially asking us about Moscato. And Moscato is a popular wine. We weren't particularly interested in doing Moscato because it often is simply just sweet. We wanted something a bit more sophisticated than that. So what we wanted is a drink that both mother and daughter could enjoy together. So that's why we've come up with the Frizzante. So it is a stopped ferment with the Verdelho juice. So that means the sugars aren't all converted over to alcohol. It finishes up around the 9%. And then it's lightly bubbled, so about half the bubble that the Espadella gets. So it's just a bit of effervescence. So it's a nice playful little drink. We often refer to that one as our veranda wine. So it's a nice one to have some friends over when you can later, and have some nibbles. You don't have to worry about having consumed too much alcohol because it is at lower end of the scale. Now, the other one that we also do is on alternate years, we do a sparkling. We'll do a sparkling rosé. In 19, just because it was a challenging year, we didn't have quite as much volume as we would normally have. Normally we'd do a still from the Chambourcin and then a bubbled with the Dolcetto. Now, unfortunately, because of the volume we had, we simply weren't able to do both those options. And we got into the barrel room with Nick and did some testing and blending and decided we actually like the combination of the Dolcetto and Chambourcin together. So it's about a 50-50 blend, and then it's lightly bubbled. So this, I think, is quite successful. Unlike our previous Dolcetto sparklings, it's got a bit more backbone in it, and I think that comes from the Chambourcin. It's just a bit more guts in it, and it makes a nice one for into the meals as well. So things with pork, it goes quite nicely with, or lamb. So it's really quite good. So I think it's one of Yo's favorites. So that's a good one there. So those are the range that we have within the bubbles. We also, and I think Dale did mention on this one, this is a little special one. This has only been the second time then we've been able to do a late pick. Because here in the Great Lakes area, we tend to have a lot of humidity pressures. We find that the varieties of grapes that we do grow were picked specifically because they can, for the most part, handle that humidity. But the humidity is a real enemy if you want to do a late pick, because as you get further on in February, it just gets a bit too humid for the fruit to sustain. Now, in I think it was 2012, And again, in 18, we were able to have a dry enough season to be able to leave them on a little bit longer. They don't look particularly attractive when they're left on there. They're kind of gray and ugly, but it's amazing how nice and sweet a produce it is. With the late pick, it's more dessert category, but not a botrytis. So it's quite light. It's only around 7%. So it doesn't have that hot burn that botrytis often have. It also means that you can have a little bit more. So you can have maybe a second glass with that dessert and not feel like you're getting over the top. There you go. So I hope you like our little chat. And by all means, check out our website and you can pick your own favorites. We also do mixed pack. Local delivery, we actually are doing free delivery from Torrey down to Madawi. So those are all free delivery zones now. Otherwise, we do shipping through most of the states. Thank you.